Basic SketchUp Tools Tutorial Part 1. First thing you're going to want to do is go to the View menu, open up your Toolbars, and change your toolbars to the large tool set. You can get rid of the Getting Started one, because most of those tools are duplicated on here. You'll also probably want to have the View toolbar, and that's going to appear along the top. Excuse me. That's probably all you need at the moment. Measurements are not too important. We've got the measurements panel down there. That's pretty much all. So the large tool set and the views. I'm just going to move the large tool set so it appears along the top. That might not be possible. No, I'll just drag it over to the left again. And these views I'm going to bring down to here and just plug them in under there. That's not ideal. Why does that go like that? Doesn't matter. I'll just put them there. Alright, so these views here are going to allow me to change the view of my camera pretty quickly. These shape tools here are draw a rectangle, draw a circle, draw a polygon, and draw a closed arc. Then we've got the line tools, so draw a line, draw a freehand line, draw an arc, and draw another arc. Sorry, that's a semicircle, and that's an arc. On the left, move an object, or move a point, or move an edge. Push-pull, so give a shape some volume. Rotate. Follow me. This is actually a really cool tool that I'll show you how to use shortly. Scale and offset. Then we've got a whole bunch of measurement tools, which we'll look at later. So we're going to start off with this tutorial by building the easiest thing that everyone always builds when you get into SketchUp, and that's a very basic house. Now we're going to make this to scale in Unity, and so if you think of the size of a house, it's probably, we're going to make a little tiny house, maybe a dog's house, so we're going to go 2 by 3. This is a fairly big dog house, and because this is in inches, it doesn't look very big. You might have to zoom in. When we import it into Unity, because it's in inches, 1 inch is going to equal 1 meter or 1 unit in Unity, which will come out at a decent size. So we're going to give this base here some volume. I'm going to pull that up, and I'm probably going to pull it up about 0.2 of an inch. So I can just type 0.2, hit enter, and you'll see down the bottom right, if I type 0.2, it appears, and it goes up 0.2. So I've given that some volume there. It's probably not enough, so I'm going to actually pull it up to about 2 inches, like that, and that's a bit better. It might be too much. Might just pull it up 1.5, 1.5. There we go. That's good there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very small line across the top of this house here, and you'll notice that in SketchUp you get these inference points. The light blue one tells me that it's a midpoint. The green one tells me that it's an end point. The red square means that it's on the edge, and the blue diamond, which is there, tells me that it's on the face of an object, or the flat surface of an object. There's all these other inference points as well. So if I move my cursor over here and then drag up, that's actually saying I'm going to draw a straight line up from that point. And I know it's a straight line up because the dotted blue line matches the blue axis. If I do it that way, you can see I get a dotted red line, which matches the blue, the red axis below it. And if I go that way, I get a dotted green line, which matches the axis that way. If I go out that way, you can see that green line is going to match that axis. So I can work with those axes. What I want to do though is use a midpoint here, click and drag across here. Now you can't work visually in 3D. What I mean by that is you can't just guess that, well, that looks like a straight line across there, because it's not. Google SketchUp will show you when it's a straight line by either giving you a color that tells you, okay, this is exactly on the green axis, or in this case, there are ways to make it parallel to another object. That will be parallel to another object. But say I did this here and just drew that there. and I want another line that's parallel to this object here. If I just move my cursor over it for a bit and then draw over here, that line there is actually parallel to the other one, even though it doesn't look it. So it doesn't actually look like it's parallel there, but when I look from top-down view, you can see that it is parallel. So you need to be aware that in 3D, what you see may not always be the best representation of what actually is. Now, I don't need those two lines, so if you drew them in, you can erase them. So we've used the square tool, the push-pull tool, and the line tool, and now we're going to use the move tool, which is this one here. The move tool is also fairly powerful, and it works with those inference points as well. So I'm going to click on this edge. It doesn't matter where on the edge I click, but I'm going to grab that edge and I'm going to pull it up. So I want to pull it up on blue axes. I don't want to pull it this way or down or anything like that, or sideways. I just want to pull it up on the blue axes. And I probably want to pull it up on the blue axes just one unit. So we won't really think in terms of inches, we'll think in terms of units. So 1 unit, half a unit, 0.2 of a unit, and so on. So I can see there's a doghouse shape that I've got so far. It does need to have a little entryway. So what I'm going to do is draw that on the front here. And I'm just going to guess really where it's going to go. It doesn't have to be perfect in this case. So that goes on the front, and I'm going to push that in a little bit. Now this is not going to be a doghouse that can be entered, it's just going to be for scenery or whatever. And so I push that in a little bit like that there. Now after I've done that, what I can do is I can make some other changes to my doghouse. I can draw a line across here, because what I want to do is I want to pull this out a bit and have a little bit of an eave over the top of that. And I could do the same thing for the other end if I wanted to. I don't want to in this case. Lastly, what I'm going to do is add a chimney. And this is going to be quite a complex tool to use, because I need to use those inference points. Because I can't just do this. That is not a chimney. Now, why a doghouse would need a chimney, I don't know, but we're going to put one in anyway. So that there is not a chimney. That's just a block on the side of the house. To do a chimney, what I'm going to need to do is get the pen tool and draw. So from anywhere on there, I'm going to draw up on the blue axis. Then I'm going to draw out along the red axis and back down on the green axis until it says on face, and that line is blue. And then I'll just join that last one up. So that there has given me part of a chimney, and all I need to do now is give it some volume. Like that. And now you can see that that is more of a chimney. If I use the offset tool, this is the offset tool here, and offset that top bit a little bit and push down, I can get it looking like a chimney inside. And lastly, I might make a dog bowl down the front here. So a dog bowl down the front here, and this is going to use the Polygon Tool. So the Polygon Tool, when you click it, you'll get the option to type in the number of sides. Before you click anywhere else, you'll get the option to type in a number of sides. Now I'm just going to type in 10 for mine and hit enter. Then when I draw my shape, you see it's got 10 sides on it. I'm going to draw that shape like that there. Now what I'm going to do with this is use a scale tool to make it actually look a bit more like a dog ball. But before I do that, I'm going to pull that up and give it some volume. Then this is the scale tool. It lets me select a face and scale it in. Now if I scale it like that, that's going to look really odd and not like a dog bowl at all. But if I hold down Control while I scale, it's going to bring all the edges in uniformly. Then I can offset that top bit push that down into there. So I get a dog bowl shape. Now, SketchUp is really good for geometric shapes like this. In Blender, the same thing would take a little bit longer. It's essentially the same process, but the tools in Blender are a little bit more difficult to use, not as straightforward. But in here, it's fairly easy to work with, so we don't need to worry too much about making mistakes. Mistakes in SketchUp, though, will cost you, especially if you make big mistakes early on. It's not easy to undo mistakes in your model. In Blender, 3ds Max, other tools like that, there are ways to fix your model if you make mistakes. So for example, if you've got two vectors that are really close together but not quite touching, in Blender 3ds, you can just kind of join those together, weld them together, and essentially make them into one, which should fix most errors in the model. In SketchUp, if you do it, there's not really any way to do that. You'll have to delete them and then redraw small parts of your model. So it's important in SketchUp to work with simple geometric shapes and get it right the first time. Now once I've done this, I'm going to turn this doghouse into a group, and I'm going to turn this one into a group. The only reason I'd use a component is if I want to make multiple copies of the same object in the model. Otherwise there's no real need to make a component of it. So this group here, I'm going to go Plugins, Center on Origin. My chimney wasn't part of that group for some reason. So let's just undo the group. And we'll select that. Making sure I've got everything there. And then right click, Make Group. And this here also, click on it 3 times, Make Group. Now I'll just move this one out of the way for the time being. And this one here, I'm going to go Plugins, Center on Origin. Now to export this to a model that Unity can use, I go File, Export, 3D Model. Generally, I just want to use a collada file. If you've got the option to use FBX, that is sometimes better. But Unity has improved over the last few years, and it does import collada files quite well. So I'm just going to stick with using that because it's the default for SketchUp. And also, after about 30 days of using SketchUp, or maybe 8 hours of using SketchUp, you can't export in FBX anymore. It kind of just says, no, you can only do collada files now. So we may as well just use them. Options. You want to triangulate all the faces. You don't untick that. You want to export only the selection set. You don't want to export everything in your model, because you can build like lots of different things in the one SketchUp file and set up a whole scene in there, and then make each one a group as you build it, and then export only the selection set. And you want to preserve component hierarchies. You'll also want to export texture maps. We haven't put any texture on this, but we can export texture maps, and just make sure that those things are ticked. I think the only one that won't be ticked will be export only selection set. You give it a name, so doghouse, and then click export, and that's it. The next few videos I'll look at importing this into Unity, and then we'll look at adding some textures to it in here, re-importing it into Unity, and using some basic light map tools.